All right. So we're going to be talking about the API, how to work it, how to set it up, all that good stuff. All right. So I'm going to try and keep this quick. Um, that. So we're going to start with the model folder. There's three folders that are important to us. That is the API folder, the config folder, and the model folder. Another file that's important to us is the SQL file, of course, because that's where we're getting all of our queries from. But I'll go over that in a second. So within the model folder is going to be a PHP file for every single table in our database. So if we look at our database in PHP MyAdmin, there's 18 tables. So we're going to have 18 PHP files underneath the model folder. Okay. Now you'll see that there's only 5 here right now. I'm relying on you guys and myself to create them as needed. So for example, if I'm looking at the model folder, I see no classes.php. So if I'm getting, let's see if we can just find classes. What result? 212. Yeah. Let's see here. Okay, get required classes. Okay. So we get to this SQL file and we look at it, look at the query. It's clearly getting classes. And so really this is probably better for program. Is there anything else more specific to classes? Okay, add class. Perfect. So as we can see here, there's an add class, but there's no class.php. So we can make a new class.php. And again, just as you're going, you just gotta kind of make it. Be wise, look at it, really pay attention. That you're gonna have to see, does this belong in one of the already existing ones? Would it make more sense in one of the existing ones? So you gotta kind of play it by ear, you know what I'm saying? So now within every class, within every PHP file within model is a class. Okay. So class. Is that right? Or do I have that backwards? Class. There we go. So yeah. And again, every single one of these should be its own class. It's to follow some rule called, or some layout called PDO, or so I'm told by a tutorial. Anyway, now within each class, you're gonna have a couple private variables. The first one's called con. It's what your database is gonna be. And the next one is table. It's the name of your table, whatever it is inside of the database. So classes, capitalization doesn't seem to matter, but why not follow it anyway? What does matter is spelling, and if there's an underscore, underscores. Okay. And then you're also going to want to add some public variables. Now, you may not use all these variables in every single function you write, but you're going to want to include every single row within classes, and you can find it in the structure of the table. You're going to want to include every single row. Okay. That is important because it's going to be, if it's not used by a function immediately, it's going to be used by a function. So ID, I'm not going to write all of them. I'll just write like 3. Name. Don't forget the $sign because PHP is quirky. Public. Title. And these should all be public, okay? And so on. All right, so now every class or every PHP file in the model is probably going to have 4 different functions. It may have some more specific functions. For example, stuff that really limits it down, like only get me classes that start with the letter A. I don't know why you'd want that as a function, but it's just an example. So that might be a function on top of these 4, which will probably be there. They may not all be there, but they probably will. So you're probably gonna have a read function. And again, you're just gonna find these in the SQL.php, right? So yeah, you're gonna find them there. If they exist. If they don't, then don't worry about it. But you're probably going to have a read function for sure, which reads every piece of class data, okay, and outputs as JSON. You're going to have an update, which updates part of a class row or piece of data. So only one single piece, not all the pieces. You're going to have a create, which adds a new class. And you may have a read single, which reads one class. These are just common methods which you'll find. Again, you may also find some various other methods. You just have to be wise in where you put them. Okay, so just think hard about that. It won't be too hard to figure it out, but just don't just be kind of cautious. All right, so let's see if we can find one for the reading class. Update class. Get class info. It doesn't seem like they have one for just read all classes, which is kind of what I was saying. It may just not exist. Oh, all classes. There we go. Form from ID name. I don't know. I'm not going to convert it right now. This is for later. Let's just go to major. There's an easier one. So if we go to majors, okay, there's a all majors function. This is a read, right? Because it reads everything. So if we go into the majors.php, you'll notice that it has the con and table I was telling you about. It also has the properties of majors. If you look in majors, these are the only 3 properties. And then one thing I forgot to mention is every class will have a constructor. So how's it go? Construct. And every constructor will be exactly the same. So you could even copy paste. It will take in a database and it will set con to that database. You can again just copy paste this. Okay. This because it's a R property. Okay. All right, so this is the read. Again, I just took this query directly from the SQL, all majors. This and this are exactly the same. And then the difference is that I use the database to prepare it. So preparing the query with the database, and then I execute the query, and then I return the contents of the query. Now, where do I return it to? I return it to the API. So inside of the API, you're going to find some subfolders. This is the next important folder, the API folder. You're going to find a subfolder, probably, again, for every table. So there's probably going to be 18 of these subfolders. Now, within these subfolders, you'll notice that each of these subfolders probably will correspond with a models.php. you're going to include a new PHP file for every function inside of the corresponding majors. So if we look at majors, we have a read function, a create function, an update function, and I'll just make it right now, public function read single, and a read single function. So for every one of these functions, I have a PHP underneath the API major. Okay. So for now, we're just going over read because with create and update, I'm still a little fuzzy. And for read single, you guys can figure that out since it's very similar to read. Now within every read .php, you're gonna have this header at the top. Okay, and you'll have it in the read single too as well. So you'll have these. And they're similar for the create, but just slightly different. But I'll make another video for create once I have it figured out. So you're going to include this database. You're going to include this database in every single PHP file within the API. Okay. And then you're going to have another include, which includes the model that you're using. So since this is under the major, we include the majors.php from the model. All right. Yep. These dot slashes just take you out of folders. So the first dot slash takes you out of major, second dot slash takes you out of API, and then this takes you to the config database. All right. So now we make a new database. This takes us to our third important folder, and this is the last important folder, the config. All right, the database.php. And we'll get back to the read in a second. So just know now that we are making a new database. We're going to stop here at line 9 and come back once we've made a new database. All right, so now we're in the database object. This stuff you're probably going to keep the same, but you might have to change 2 of these. So you're going to be using localhost more than likely, so don't worry about it. You're going to be using the advising table. Your user, now this is what you might have to change. Your username is most likely going to be root and most likely empty. The username and password will be whatever you use to log into phpMyAdmin. And it may be something if you set it. For example, for me, it's actually buttons93. But for you, more than likely it's going to be empty. And then this just connects the database, like the database variable to the database advising, right? As you can see here on this line. You're never going to have to go in here and change this. I'm only explaining it for the sake of explaining it. You're never going to have to add any PHP files to the config. You're always just going to use this database.php. All right, so now back to the read. We've made our database. We connect the database and put it in DB. And then we make a new major. So using the model majors, remember we made a class for every single one of these PHPs within model. So we make a new major. And the constructor is DB. If you remember, we connect with DB, our con with DB. So this is the database that we're using. As you can see here, database prepare, right? And then we call on the read function. Again, that's in the majors model read function. It just calls on this query. And then we fetch all from the result. So that's all, all the classes and stuff. And then we put it into data. And then we do echo JSON encode data. And this is what prints us out data, the JSON specifically. Now this may need to be changed. I'm going to have to talk to Arish more about it. But for now, I'd say just do echo JSON encode. It's not going to be that different no matter what we do. It may be a few extra lines per PHP folder file. So now I'm going to go here. I'm going to do localhost /cs 481. For you, it's going to be whatever you have in your www file or your htdocs file, depending on what you use. For me, it's CS481. And just go press enter. I don't remember the path, so I'm just going to click on it. Now you want to go, the file we're reading is the API file because it's kind of like the connecting piece. So we want to, if we want to read, we go into the API folder and to whatever we're reading. I want to read a major, and then I click on the read. Oh, geez. Oh, I have to set my password because remember mine is buttons93. Yours, you probably won't have to do this. All right, and now we have our majors. Yeah, hopefully this clears up some things. If you have any questions, please let me know. I will try to answer, but I am also really new to this as well, so no guarantees. All right, peace.